If you've watched my videos before, then you know there's a few things that I strive for with my content. Positivity, transparency, honesty, and a level of bluntness and realness or genuineness, or I'm pretty sure those last three words I just made up, but that level of realness that you're not gonna get basically anywhere else on this website or on the internet or just in general anymore due to just how everything is nowadays with the internet and social media. And today it's time for one of those videos, okay? Let me give you a little bit of history to this baby boomer face that you're seeing right here. I was born a little bit after the turn of the century, alright? So, I'm not necessarily an old frail man just yet, but, I've also got 2+ decades under my belt. I've seen some things, I've been through some things, I have some life experience, which means I've also lived through, not necessarily multiple generations at this point, but I was there for basically, I was born towards like the beginning of what would be like that Gen Z time frame, just a few years after Gen Z started, which would have been like 97, I believe. And now obviously I've had the misfortune and somewhat fortune of seeing Gen A come along. I say misfortune because of things like, what's it called? Skibbity toilet? Is that what it's called? Seeing things like that pop up on my feed and being absolutely confused by that and all the other brain rot on my YouTube feed and such. And then also, I do have younger siblings. My youngest sibling is literally 3 years old, so there's like a 2-decade gap between me and him, which is just insane. It makes me feel so old, yet, I don't know, so pure at the same time, just, being able to be there, see my younger sibling grow up, but it also makes me sad just seeing the type of entertainment that him and my other younger siblings watch, and also just, seeing the things that pop up on my feed from time to time. But, we'll get to all that as we go on through the video, because there's, again, this is one of those videos where it's not scripted, there's no notes, it's just my scrambled ADHD brain just kind of going through this and talking to you guys as we go, and hopefully we'll get to some cohesive point or solution or just resolution of what I'm even trying to say by the end of all this. There are some things that I've been doing in my life lately to try to help me just feel more human, because the more the time has gone on, excuse my language, I feel like a fucking robot, okay? I wake up every morning and the first thing I do is I reach for my phone and I'm instantly scrolling through my analytics on YouTube, making sure nobody's messaged me, checking my emails to see if there's any new sponsorships coming through, which, that's another thing. There is so much, what do you want to call it? I feel like there's been a transition from content being created as a passion to content being created, driven by the motivation of increasing their revenue. You know what I mean? So, when I open my emails, I do get a lot of sponsorships. In fact, I turn down at least 20 sponsorships on a weekly basis, if not more. And it's just simply due to the fact that I don't want to bog down my content with all of that garbage. Could I be making twice, if not triple, as much as I am now? Yeah. And if it ever gets to a point of where I am financially struggling to a point of where I can't afford food, then yeah, I'm not going to be a moron. I'll accept some of that stuff if I have to. But for the time being, between AdSense, some of the other businesses that I run on the side of YouTube, and considering the fact that I run 4 YouTube channels and just other stuff like that, I'm doing fine for myself. There's also merch and stuff like that, which helps, and the memberships and Patreon, stuff, and, all that stuff, genuinely helps a ton, and especially when it comes to, like, the membership and Patreon stuff. Obviously, all that stuff is never guaranteed, but the fact that people are willing to support me from that angle seriously means more than any of you that are supporting me in that way could ever imagine. And even, beyond all that, the fact that you're taking the time to even watch this video in the first place genuinely means the world to me, because our time is finite on this earth, and you should only spend your time doing things that truly make you happy, that you're truly interested in, and that you feel will actually be worth your time, which is also another point we'll get to later. So if you're spending some of your finite time on this earth watching this video and spending this time with me, again, I appreciate you, thank you. But I genuinely feel like a robot, and it's gotten to a point lately where my brain and my body, because for the last couple years, right, I know there's a lot of people out there that struggle with like social media addiction, YouTube addiction, TikTok addiction. I've done a really good job of breaking those bad habits. However, even myself, as somebody that tries to keep myself as pure as possible when it comes to not engaging with social media, not scrolling Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. Like, I don't TikTok doom scroll. I don't YouTube shorts doom scroll or whatever. Like, sometimes I'll get into a bit of a doom scrolling thing if I'm like searching through certain things where maybe like, oh, okay, I need to figure out how to complete this secret, challenge in Call of Duty. So then I might quote unquote doom scroll for a bit to try to figure out how to do it or like what things I may be missing. But that's not necessarily the same thing. Thankfully, I did kind of break that bad habit of doom scrolling a few years ago. But even then, somebody like me that doesn't really do that stuff, I still find myself occasionally just going on to these various social media sites because I am relatively active on them in the way that I do post quite frequently just to engage with you guys. And every social media platform is just built in a way to where it's supposed to be so overstimulating that you cannot take your eyes away from it, with the way that the algorithms are set up, with the way that all the short form content is set up. It's all meant to be a black hole for your time, and it's truly terrifying because while for somebody like me, again, as somebody as disciplined as me, where it's like, okay, I know better than this, I'm just gonna do what I need to do and close out of the app. Even then, even I get suckered into it sometimes, and I can only imagine what it's like for folks out there that genuinely have those social media addictions, or just for younger folks, again, which ties back into what I was saying before about my younger siblings, where they're a lot younger. Thankfully, they don't have social media, but they still do have access to things like YouTube. And I just feel like no matter where you turn, even on the simplest things like articles online, there's advertisements everywhere, or certain forms of content, or just everybody wanting your time, wanting your attention, even if it's not advertisement based or even necessarily revenue based. There's always somebody just like, please pay attention to me. Please give me your watch time. Please give me your clicks and views. Please give me your money at every turn. And it's just, it's too much. I'm not kidding when I say I turn on my phone and when I look at it, I feel nauseous. I'm serious. I'm literally convinced that that's my brain's like self-defense mechanism saying, Nathan, please stop doing this, because I turn it on. And again, I don't go on social media that often, but even when it's just something as simple as, hey, I need to post my TikToks and my Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts for the day, my brain is screaming at me to stop. And I literally always have my phone on Do Not Disturb nowadays. I've been doing that for the last 2 years now. I don't take my phone off of Do Not Disturb, ever. Like, when I first wake up and maybe like once or twice throughout the day just to see if I've gotten any messages or any other important notifications I might have missed otherwise, I'll turn it off just to check real quick. Otherwise, I leave it on DND all the time because, man, I can only imagine what it's like for people that have their notifications on all the time. This person posted a TikTok, this person liked your thing, this person posted this over here, this person commented on that, just over and over and over again. It's scary not only for adults out there or teenagers out there, especially for like teenagers that should really be focusing on like school or, getting their homework done, or maybe focused on their job, or just, doing literally anything else. Being a teenager, living their life, just hanging out with their friends, just constantly being suckered into the social media loop. Or for adults that are, especially for like work at home adults, where they're working on their phones or their computers, constantly having the notifications roll in. And while again, it is one of those things where it does kind of come down to that person's self-discipline and how much they restrict those things, what they actually have active on their phone, whether or not they're, trying to avoid those things, like, putting on Do Not Disturb would be a great first step if they actually want to avoid those things. It's just the fact that by default, with all the notifications that are on all the time, with the way that these platforms are set up, it's scary. And being an older brother to 3 younger siblings, the youngest sibling, like I said before, is 3 years old, but the one that's like just, a bit younger than me, he's, late teenager, gonna be an adult in a few years, but, even for him, he's more like me, where he's a bit older, obviously, so he doesn't necessarily get suckered into that stuff as often. But, me and him have had conversations before where he's like, yeah, man, I sometimes I kind of get suckered into the YouTube Shorts doom scrolling. And it just really makes me scared for the future where, everybody always needs that instant gratification. And if something isn't going to give them that instant gratification, more likely than not, they're just gonna pass up on it or not find it to be interesting, or they get bored really fast. Not to mention how much it's literally rotting children's brains nowadays. I mean, not even just children, literally everybody's brains, man. I've even seen it happening to my grandparents from time to time. The internet is one of those things where, when I was growing up, right? Because when I was growing up, again, it was still like the early 2000s and such. The internet wasn't necessarily new, but it was still new-ish in the way that it hasn't evolved to the way that it is nowadays with all these different social media sites. Like, I had a MySpace page back in the day before that site unfortunately went bye-byes, which, let me just say, I really do miss MySpace. It was a pretty great site. You know what I mean? It was those early stages. YouTube didn't even come around until like 2005, and even then it didn't start blowing up until like the end of the 2000s, with like between like 07 and 2010, I want to say, is when it really started to finally take off there. Then we saw some of the first big creators come out, like, truly. And, things just felt so much more innocent back then. It was when everything was all about the passion. It was all about respecting your time and doing things out of the love and passion for creating the things that people wanted to create, rather than just trying to suck up all of your time, trying to suck up all of your attention, trying to waste your time. Every time that I get on social media, the first thing that I think about is, you know, WALL-E. You guys know how, like, towards the end of the movie, or I guess it was really more like towards the middle of the movie, but, you know, like the second half of the movie, right? Once WALL-E and Eve get to that, you know, out in outer space where all the humans are at, since Earth had to be evacuated, since there was just, you know, debris and litter everywhere, and, you know, they were supposed to be cleaning that up. But they get to that, you know, spaceship or whatever, and then, you know, all the humans there, they're overweight, they're just constantly having screens in their face, you see, you know, they can't even walk, you know, they're just sitting in their chairs that take them everywhere. You got the snack on this side, the drink on this side, the screen right in their face. They don't even know when somebody's right in front of them because they're just staring at the screen. It's scary how WALL-E literally predicted that, and here we are not even like 15 years after the movie released, and we're already living in that reality. At this point, I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm just running in circles with my thoughts, but this is something that's been brewing on my mind. It's something I've really wanted to talk about for a while, but you know, now that I'm doing it again, ADHD brain going crazy, it's like I've been bottling it up for so long that there's so many things that I want to say, but I don't even know what to say because there's just so much that I could say, but I feel like everybody's already heard it all before. But this is something that I at least wanted to address and talk about just because I'm sure there's somebody out there that can relate to it or has found themselves in those situations or is just now realizing after watching this video like, oh yeah, I'm kind of wasting my time doom scrolling on social media because, you know, this is another thing where some people could point their fingers at me and be like, hey, aren't you the same guy that literally says all you do is work, wake up, work, game? You know, if you're not working, you're gaming. If you're not gaming, you're working. And then if you're not doing either of those, you're probably, you know, sleeping whenever it's your bedtime. Yeah, I've said that before. I say it all the time, and it's the truth. But you know what? There's two angles to that. One, video games, I mean, I get paid to play video games whenever I'm making like content based around it, so I'm, you know, literally doing my job when I'm recording and editing and making videos based around gaming, but also I enjoy gaming. So it is not a waste of time for me because it is a hobby of mine. For me, I mean, I'd even go as far as to say that it's a lifestyle of mine because it's like gaming is like a core pillar of who I am as a person. You know, I know a lot about video games. I play a lot of video games. I love video games. Got the shelves behind me, got games filling up my dressers and my closet and stuff like that. Like, I absolutely love and adore video games. But again, that's doing it because I have a pure passion for it, because there's genuinely something to be taken away from video games. Video games, again, are created with passion. Video games are an art form, and all art deserves to be, embraced and consumed and enjoyed. And truthfully, video games are nowhere near as bad as social media. Honestly, I think sitting down and playing Warzone for a couple of hours with the boys is so much better than doom scrolling social media, because more times than not, you don't even enjoy doom scrolling social media, and you're not going to retain a simple, like, not even a single thing from your doom scrolling session. You might retain one or two of the shorts you watch out of like the 200 to 300, but at least when you're playing Warzone with the boys or you're playing through a single player game, it's something you're enjoying that you're doing in your free time. Obviously, there's a conversation to be had like, hey, if you're sitting there playing video games all day, getting no work done, not eating, not sleeping right, then yeah, you know, conversation we have like, hey, maybe you want to cut it back, maybe you want to like make sure you're doing other things. But that's the point. There's healthy balance there. But when it comes to social media, I don't really think there is such thing as a quote-unquote healthy balance to it all. I think it really is just 90% negatives with the 10% positives being the actual passion-driven and, a substantial content being released that has some sort of substance or something that can be taken away from it in an artful or tasteful way. And same thing with video games. Again, video games are an art form. So as long as you're doing it responsibly, then yeah, there's always something to be taken away from video games, whether it be life lessons, a fun experience, or a night you'll remember for a very long time of playing Warzone with the boys. And that's the other angle that I want to look at here. Not only is all of this stuff a black hole for your time, but also all of it is absolutely substanceless. And look, after your doom scrolling sessions, look me in the eyes and tell me that, like, honestly, you retained or gained anything from it. Do you actually feel good or proud of yourself or happy for doom scrolling YouTube shorts, TikToks, or Instagram, or whatever it is for hours on end and accomplishing nothing? If that's what makes you happy, I'm sorry. I really just feel sorry for you. I do. And similar to the video games thing, as long as you're being responsible with it, I guess there really isn't any harm in it if that's truly what you do enjoy doing. But at the end of the day, it's very substanceless. But as long as you're doing it responsibly, there's a conversation to be had there. But this is more from the angle of just how unhealthy and how I guess how prone people can be to developing unhealthy habits with social media, and it's not even really down to the people's faults necessarily. It does come down to how these social media platforms are designed. Another thing I wanted to touch on is just how negative social media has been for humans developing their communication skills, or how it has evolved people's communication skills, because ever since social media has come around, you know, when it comes to in-person communication, I feel like with older people, like anybody that's like, I want to say 20 plus, like 20 plus, because even like people that are like, you know, like 18, 19 nowadays, you know, they were born still a little bit later towards like the mid 2000s, so it's even at the point with people like that where you know, they're still a bit younger, still kind of been tainted by the brain rot. But anybody that's like 20, 21 plus, they still grew up during that relatively pure era where there was still a lot of substantial content. It wasn't just all about scrolling social media all day, and you still feel like you're having a genuine conversation with those people. But anytime that I've talked to anybody that's even just slightly younger, even if they are like 18, 19 years old, I still feel the brain rot coming through, and there's just something weird. Like, it's not one of those things where it's like, oh, they're using all sorts of slang and lingo that I don't understand because, you know, I'm getting older. No, it's literally like social media is degrading people's communication skills. It's really hard to tell unless, you know, you talk to somebody that hasn't had their social skills been degraded, and then, you know, you go and talk to somebody like that. Especially if you're a bit younger and all you're surrounded is, you know, is by the brain rot, then you're not necessarily going to notice it. But seriously, it's scary. Not to mention just how toxic things have become online, to where there's like multiple kinds of people, right? You have the toxic people that are just always looking for fights. And then you have, oh my gosh, okay, here, can I rant? Do I rant? I've already been ranting for 20 plus minutes. Do I really go here? You know what I'm gonna do here? Oh my god, okay. I cannot stand those people on X or Twitter, or whatever you want to call it, Reddit, the YouTube comment section. Those people that when they're typing, they intentionally leave out certain words sometimes just to kind of make themselves sound like they're shortening their sentences just to, I guess in a way, sound more proper, but also sound more firm, and like, you know, they're like above you in a way. They use very proper grammar and punctuation. Now, I use, you know, proper punctuation and grammar and stuff like that too, obviously. You know, I use all the commas and periods, but I'm talking about the people where you can tell they're trying to be above you, and you have those warriors where you can tell they're like, when you're reading their text, you think of them being kind of like smug while they're doing it, like, well, you know exactly what I'm talking about, when in reality, even though they're trying to talk all big and proper, they're probably just like some overweight neck beard, their genitals in one hand with one hand on the keyboard, talking smack with their keyboard, trying to act like they're above you. Or you have the other angle of that where they have that exact same physique, doing the exact same things, except they're just being toxic like they were in the first example. I just cannot stand how negative and toxic everybody is online. That's why I don't have any friends. That, like, literally, it's not because, like, oh, man, you know, I don't get along with people, or I don't like, I mean, that is really a huge part of it. I don't like people. I don't like talking to people. I don't like being around people. I'm happier when I'm by myself. But the other angle of it is, I hate being online. I hate talking to people. I really do. It's just that everybody has toxic traits online nowadays. And then when it comes to IRL, well, you know, it's just one of those things where I moved a few years ago, and after I moved, I just didn't make the effort to go out and meet people, just because, I don't know, again, I'm happier being a ghost. I don't need no friends. I don't need no family. I'm happier when I'm by myself. It's just, you know, I've talked about this before. I'm not going to go too deep into it or go into specifics, but I have a lot of mental and physical, mainly the physical health conditions too. Which just make it very hard for me to socialize and be around people. So, you know, it's not really anything I can control. Even if I would take medication, there's not much that can be done for it. It's more comfortable for me, and I'm a lot happier when I'm alone. So, you know, just, yeah. Obviously, there's always been a certain level of toxicity that has existed online, even since the early days of, like, Facebook or MySpace or, you know, YouTube or whatever. You've always had those toxic people online, but I just feel like nowadays it's gotten to this sickening percentage of people that really delve into the toxic territory online, to where, like, you have like a 50-50 chance, if not even more, leaning into like 60-40 of you talking to somebody, them just being toxic in some way, or being a part of the infinite echo chamber hive mind that is the internet, where you can't have your own unique opinion. You must echo the same sentiment and opinion as everybody else, otherwise you're in the minority. But the minute that the minority becomes the majority, then it's okay again. And then even if you're, succumbing to the opinions that they were, that they were aligning themselves with before, just because the majority and minority sides have flipped, now, it doesn't matter. Again, if you're not a part of that majority, you're wrong. At this point, I don't even know where I'm going with this. There's so much that I want to say, but I feel like I've already said enough, and this video's been going for long enough. I've just kind of been rambling at this point, but it's just something that's been on my mind, that's been bugging me for a while, and I'm sick of it, man. I'm sick of social media. I'm sick of all of it. I'm just sick of the internet in general. It's just... The internet's one of those things where it could have been a godsend, and it truly has been. There's so many amazing things that have come from the internet, like all the amazing content we've gotten over the years, all the amazing evolutions and expansions and modifications to the way that we tackle everyday tasks, whether that be solving like everyday problems, or the way that, I'm not the biggest proponent or fan of AI just because of all of the negative ways it can be used, but I will admit there has been a lot of positive uses that come out of AI. There is many constructive uses for it, like say if you're, I don't know, like, for example, ChatGPT. If you're a teacher and you have say you're trying to make a spelling test for all of your first grade students, you could be like, hey, ChatGPT, here's all of these words that I have along with their definitions. Are you able to kind of write up a script to turn it into a multiple choice test for me, just so I can kind of give some to my students, and like 99% of the time it's going to do it 100% correctly, and then you can kind of go through, double check it for yourself, and as long as everything's correct, then there you go. That just saved you a ton of time from having to do it yourself manually, so there is positive things that come out of stuff like that. But for the most part, when it comes to the social media side of the internet nowadays, that's like the main point I want to get to. It's not the internet as a whole necessarily, just mainly the social aspects of it. It's just a dumpster fire, man, between the toxic people, the way that people try to suck up your time like a black hole, and just the lack of substance and passion and the drive for increasing everybody's revenue. So if I can give any kind of like final concluding thoughts here, if you feel like you're struggling with social media, or you just feel like you're at that same point that I'm at, where you're just like, dude, I am so sick of all this, I don't want to be around it anymore, I'm tired of wasting my time, I'd highly recommend doing what I've been doing for the last couple years, and that is simply turning your phone on do not disturb, trying to I guess actively engage a certain level or filter of discipline and like self-awareness to be like, oh man, I'm on social media right now, I should get off of this, and not delaying it. The second you have that thought, just close out of social media, just really working up your self-discipline. I gotta say, despite the fact that even I find myself, doom scrolling occasionally here and there for short bursts of time, it's been a huge help, and just my overall happiness, just getting off the internet and just, living life again, just like I used to, because like back in the day, man, back in like the mid 2000s or even like the early 2010s, life was just so different. You didn't wake up first thing and reach for your phone. You woke up, you maybe check like the clock on your side of your bed, but then, you look out the window, see how the weather is, and then, you get up, you go get a glass of water, you might turn on the TV, see if there's any Saturday morning cartoons on, or, maybe hop on the Xbox 360 to see who's online, maybe run a match of like Black Ops 2 or something like that. But otherwise, I don't know, life just felt more like life back then, whereas it just, I just feel like we're all turning into robots, being hypnotized by these devices in our pockets, and more than the devices in our pockets, by the genuinely evil apps that all of us are accustomed to having on our devices at all times, and in some cases are pre-installed on our devices. So if you want more time, if you want to be happier, and if you want to feel like a human and not a robot, get off of social media. It'll be the best thing they've ever done for yourself. Me, if I could, I would delete all of my social media, but I'm a YouTuber, and I like being able to keep in contact with all of you, so that's not, exactly something I can do, especially since I post content on all of my social medias. But the closest I've been able to come to it is at least the whole do not disturb thing and everything I mentioned before. So I don't know. Hopefully somebody can relate to this little brambly tangent out there, and hopefully it helped you in some way. It's never too late to take your life back. Just because some time has been wasted doesn't mean it needs to continue to be wasted. But anyway, as always, massive shout out to all the patrons and channel members. Thank you to all of you in the low baller tier, and a big shout out to on the big baller tier, Milasking, and be in the big channel on GTA run events on the Chase Girl. Thank you guys so much. You guys are literal legends. I love you. Have an amazing day. It's beautiful. I love you all. Peace.